Is that the coolest thing ever? I can't believe it worked. Yay! Oh my gosh. First, we're going to put 175 grams or 3/4 of a cup of cold butter that I've cut up into small pieces into our mixer. Next, we have 240 grams of flour. I am putting 1 cup of regular flour, all-purpose flour, 120 grams, and 120 grams of whole wheat flour. It gives the dough a nice texture. We have a tablespoon of sugar, or 13 grams, a teaspoon of cardamom, which is a lovely spice. It's 1.93 grams. And the last thing we're going to do is put a teaspoon of baking powder, which really makes this dough. It's 4.79 grams, and it's baking powder. And then I'm just going to turn this up, and we're going to let this beat together for about 5 minutes, which is really long for a pie dough. This is a very strange recipe. Okay, so we're looking for a firm dough, and this looks pretty firm. I've never beat pie dough in my life like this. Pie dough is usually very picky about not mixing that butter in like that and leaving pieces. So we've got a springform pan here, and I've lined this with parchment paper. I actually sprayed the pan with cooking spray in order for this to stick. It's a very weird dough. But what we're trying to do is get this to spread up the sides. I've never handled a dough this much in my life. So here, I've gone all the way up the sides. This is just a matter of being patient and pushing this around. Honestly, I have no patience. And for me to do something like this, I feel like I don't know if I can get through it, and then suddenly I do, and I feel encouraged. All right, we'll put this in the oven. I've heated the oven to 350 degrees or 175 degrees Celsius, and we're gonna par bake this and set the timer for 10 minutes. And then I'm going to go bang my head against the wall. And this looks great. It's par baked, and it stayed up, it didn't sink. And while this was very difficult to get into this pan, it's going to be worth it. After you take your pie crust out, raise your temperature to 400 degrees or 200 degrees Celsius. And we're going to start mixing our ingredients. We have 400 grams of pumpkin puree, or 1 can of canned pumpkin that you buy in the store. I made this pumpkin puree from fresh pumpkin. I have a video up showing how to do that. The taste is amazing. A can of pumpkin will work fine, but this does take it to another level. It's just really very good. So we're gonna drop that in the pan, the bowl. And then we have 2 eggs, 112 grams or a half a cup of egg here. And that's important for this pie. So I did put these in a cup after I weighed them, and this is 3 small eggs. And then we're just gonna mix those up before we put them in with the pumpkin. Okay, we're gonna put that in the bowl. Mix that up just a little bit. And then the next ingredient we have is 397 grams of condensed milk, or 1 14-ounce can of the regular condensed milk that you can buy in the grocery store. Put that in there. 90 grams or a half a cup of regular sugar. 140 grams or a half a cup of maple syrup. And then we have 5.7 grams of salt, or a half a teaspoon. Okay, and we're gonna whisk this up could also do this in a mixer if you want to, but I'm just going to get some air in there. Okay, I think that looks pretty good. I'm going to leave that. And then we're going to pull this crust back over and put it in the pie crust. Okay, so now we're going to go back to the 175 or the 350, 175 Celsius or 350, and we're going to put this in the oven. Okay, in we go. And we're going to bake that for somewhere between 45 and 55 minutes. I'm going to put it in for 40 just to keep an eye on it, and we'll be back. So it's been about 57 minutes, and this is finally firm where I want it. And that looks lovely. It's shaking just a tad. I can bounce it. This pie has to cool completely. You can even put it in the refrigerator overnight. It just needs to make sure it's cool, because we're going to be putting some special topping on this, and I don't want it to melt. Good morning. This is the first of 2 pies that I'll be making for the holiday season, and I would be very interested to know what you make for your holiday season. So if you could put those in the comments below, that would be awesome. I put the pie in the refrigerator overnight, and now it's ready for the topping. So the first step in making this is we're going to put 200 milliliters, just over 3/4 of a cup of cream. And then we have 16 grams or 2 tablespoons of confectionery sugar. And then we have 20 grams or 1 tablespoon of maple syrup. And now we're going to mix this until it's firm but not butter. And we're going to start on a low just so the confectionery sugar doesn't poof. And once that gets going, we will let it rip. I'm going to scrape that side down. I see some of the sugar sticking. We'll let that go for a couple of minutes. I'm going to slow this down just a little bit, and you can tell when this is thickening up, because you can see the beater trail going through the cream. And at this point I turn it down just a little bit because I don't want to turn it into butter. And you can see as we go along here, the trail is getting more distinct and more distinct. This is where you have to start watching it very carefully. I push that right until it starts pushing the cream to the edge, and then I stop because I don't want it to turn into butter. And in taking the whipped cream this far, it should act like Cool Whip, and you'd be surprised it will hold in the refrigerator for days. So that's what you want your cream to look like. Technically, this should not melt all over the pie once it's sat for a day or two, if the pie lasts that long. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is chop some pecans. It's easier for me to do this, and I just take my rolling pin and break them up. If you want finer pieces, you can roll it. There, I think that's good. You're supposed to be able to have the texture of them, so we'll leave that there. So the next step is we're gonna put the cream on the pie, and you can just blop it on and spread it out. But I decided to put a baking tip on. No, a piping. I've decided to put a piping tip on, fill this baggie, and attempt to make a design on the top. This is not my strongest suit, so we'll see how this works out. And we'll start with that. My tip went inside. This is why I don't do this. This is insanity. Okay, there we go. All right, I'm gonna get this one day, and I'm gonna be really proud of myself. So I fixed my tip. This is our pie from last night. So the reason I left this in the refrigerator overnight is because I wanted these edges to cool and shrink. And for the most part, even this one, they've pulled away from the edges as it was cooling, which will make this potentially easier to get out of this pan. So we're going to open this carefully. And there you have it. There's one little, take this paper out. The sides are thin, which was intended. So you have to be careful when taking this out. Oh, yay! Oh, the sides are still there. Oh, that is so thrilling. I'm so excited. The thing didn't break. It's so thin. Okay, here we go. Carefully. Oh. Ta-da! Look! Oh my gosh, that's awesome! Oh my word, look at it! Is that the coolest thing ever? I can't believe it worked. Yay! Oh my gosh. Oh my word, that is gorgeous. I can't believe it. Okay, we'll go back to cooking. I have never handled crust like that. You just don't touch crust, but look at it. Hopefully it tastes good. But now I'm going to give this some decorations. I have to say this tip does make it easy. It just makes you look like you know what you're doing. Ooh, that looks pretty. I'm a terrible cake decorator, but that looks beautiful. All right, we're going to sprinkle some nuts over the top carefully. You're just looking for some texture. I think with the ingredients that went in here, it's a very creamy pie, and this will just give it some lovely texture. Okay, so now we're going to try to cut this cake. It's not a cake, it's a pie. And I'm just going to be very careful of the crust and see if I can get that. Ta-da! And there, oh my gosh, that looks divine. I can't wait. Oh my word, this is delicious. The crust feels like a tart type crust. Crunchy, the crust is crunchy and has texture, and the nuts and the cream add so much to this. The flavor is subtle. You can taste a bit of maple syrup. The pumpkin, the homemade pumpkin, you can taste it's just all blended really well together. The taste is fabulous. Pie number 1 for the holiday season. Stay tuned for the next pumpkin pie.